So I chose Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese is one of the most important filmmakers of the last 50 years. His movies tend to be about crime, faith, and guilt, but there's still a lot of violence wrapped around them. And he's considered an auteur because his films have a very distinct style and they have a lot of reoccurring themes in them. Some background about him is he was born in 1942 in Little Italy, New York City. He was raised in a Catholic family and surrounded by religion his whole childhood. He also had asthma when he was a kid, which means he couldn't really play sports, so he really went to the movies constantly and was just fascinated by film. He studied film at NYU, and his breakthrough movie was Mean Streets in 1973, which really showed Catholic guilt and urban crime, and this was the start to his pattern of having this theme in all of his movies. The first film I want to talk about was Taxi Driver, which was filmed in 1976. This is a story about a Vietnam veteran who was driving a cab in the 1970s New York. And Travis, who's the taxi driver, is very disgusted by the crime in the city. And he gets really disgusted when he meets a 12-year-old sex worker, and then he creates this obsession for cleaning up society. This movie builds toward a very violent attempt to rescue her, but it's even though like the audience questions his sanity, Scorsese is really trying to get at the fact that we don't know if he's just trying to protect everyone or if he's just insane. Some styles and visuals in this film. New York is really shown as being very gross, dangerous, and just not a place where you want to be. And Scorsese uses a lot of neon lights and shadows and rain to really show how unstable Travis's mind is, which is very important for this film. So the viewer can get deeper into Travis's like psyche. And there's also a frequent use of point of view shots and voiceover, which really pulls the viewer into Travis's disturbed perspective. Some themes that really happen a lot in this film are the isolation in a chaotic world and how just New York City is its own, but Travis is really in his own head. And it really makes you question if Travis is a savior or if he's just a delusional man. And it's just really a reflection on post Vietnam America and like Travis's almost like broken identity. And this was a very impactful movie too because there was some very iconic lines like Robert De Niro's "You Talking to Me" line, and it really established Scorsese as the director who could blend like gross, gritty realism with like psychological thriller almost, like getting really into the deep craziness of the world. The second film I'm going to talk about is Goodfellas, which was filmed in 1990. This was based on a true story of Henry Hill, who's a kid who grows up idolizing the mafia and wanting to be in the mafia. He sees the mob as and the mafia as someone that has power and wealth, but also respect from everyone. Which, when he's really young, you can't tell. He can't tell that it's respect from fear, not out of true, genuine respect. And this film really mixes like the glamorous life of being rich with like the horrors of mob life and how dangerous it really is. And some styles and visuals in this film is there's a lot of freeze frames in this film with Henry's narration, which makes the audience feel like they're a part of him almost. And there's some popular soundtracks by like the Rolling Stones in here, which really give it more, it makes you feel more in the time almost. And there's a lot of violence in this film, and the violence is very brutal and sudden, but there's also, Scorsese makes it very known that these people are just used to violence and it's normal to them. Some themes in this film too is like the glamour of crime and Henry's like need for wealth and respect, and he gets that through this crime. And it's also about the rise and fall. It he went from nothing and rose up to being what he wanted, what he thought he always wanted to be. And then once he got to the point as a child that he really wanted to get to with all the money and the women, it just showed his self-destruction, how he self-destructed and went back to ground zero, and that's when he went to witness protection towards the end of the movie. And the impact of this movie is it's widely known as one of the greatest gangster films ever made. And it had a lot of impact and influence on later works, things like The Sopranos, which is one of the most popular TV shows ever. And to compare these two films, The Taxi Driver is a very intimate portrait of someone that feels distant from the world, and Goodfellas is a story of the criminal culture and how normal it is for those criminals. But both really get into the idea of obsession leading to destruction, where Travis is really obsessed with fixing the city to how he thinks it should be, and Henry is obsessed with mob status and wealth. And they both almost critique American society in a way. The Taxi Driver in post-Vietnam America and the problems that occurred during that time, and Goodfellas is the corruption of the American dream, with crime and greed really ruining it. And Scorsese is an auteur because of his reoccurring themes, as I talked about, guilt and violence. And he has a very signature style of freeze frames and storytelling and voiceover narration. And he has characters that tend to be very flawed outsiders and criminals. And Scorsese's films are deeply personal, and they really reflect the American culture as he sees it and the contradictions that he sees. Scorsese is a master of combining style with a lot of action and things to really keep the viewer attentive during his films. The Taxi Driver and Goodfellas highlight the very bad side of America, and both prove why he's an auteur, and his voice and vision is one of a kind, and his work continues to shape the film and influence generations of directors to this day, which is why he's one of the greatest directors of all time.